The standard common fields do not include the reason for movement, right? I don't have a reason for movement field here, whereas return to vendor needs to have it. Similarly, when I issue stock to a cost center, the cost center code should be mandatory. So here, KOSTL, which is cost center code, becomes a mandatory field. So KOSTL cost center. So like this, based on the client requirement, if any specific field requires to be added for that specific transaction, then we're going to add it here. So just click on new entries, enter the movement type, enter the field name. GRUND is reason for movement. So for goods receipt, if the client says reason for movement needs to be a mandatory entry, then I can add it. So like this, whatever additional fields are required, specific fields are required for specific transaction movement types, I can add it here. The last one for the Migo settings is settings for transactions and reference documents. This is an interesting concept in the sense that when I open the MIGO screen, when I go to MIGO, the system will allow me to carry out all the transactions irrespective of the user that I'm logged in. It will allow me to carry out all the transactions, but in the real time, based on the username and their authorization, specific users need to be given access to specific transactions. So in the stores department, there may be certain employees who are authorized to only receiving stock, so they should be allowed to only have access to receiving activities. Similarly, those who are authorized to issue should have access to only issuing. Those who are authorized to transfer should have only transfer options. Like this, the transactions have to be restricted. But if I assign MIGO, then there cannot be any restriction because MIGO will allow all the transactions to be carried out. So to resolve this issue, what SAP has done is it has created variations of the MIGO transaction code as a default. And for those transactions, we can specify what type of activities can be carried out and what are the reference documents which can be used. For example, MIGO underscore GI, GO, GR, GSTR. GI is for goods issue, GO is for other transactions, GR is for goods receipt, TR is for transfers, and GS is for subsequent adjustment. For example, if I select MIGO GR, I go to transaction event and specify what type of activities can be carried out using this transaction code. So GR being goods receipt, I should have activities only related to receiving the stock. So goods receipt is receiving stock, release GR block is receiving stock, subsequent delivery is receiving stock, place in storage is receiving stock. So when I make this change and save it, I'm going to assign this MIGO GR to the users, and when the users log in and they access the transaction code, they will be able to use only those receiving type of activities. Similarly, for each transaction, I can restrict the number of reference documents which can be used. So I go back to the IMG screen, select the transaction and go to reference document and specify what type of reference documents can be used. In case the goods receipt can happen only against purchase order, material document, production order, and others, then I'm going to select only those documents, save this configuration. Now when I go back and execute MIGO GR, the reference documents also will be restricted to only those 4 documents. So like this, based on the client requirement, the end user restrictions can be set up based on the transaction codes that are going to be assigned to them. Okay, so these are the end user restrictions and the screen selection, field selection for Migo. Next, we're going to look at some of the specific configurations for the transactions for goods issue transfer postings. These are the specific configurations. Create store location data automatically. We have already seen what it is. So here the plant is already selected, but within the plant, for which movement types the system should check for storage location data automatically can be specified here. Similarly, When you are issuing stock using any other transaction code, like I indicated earlier, apart from MIGO, earlier we had other transaction codes which were used for carrying out inventory transactions. So in case those earlier transaction codes are used, should the system automatically show the list of all the items in the reference document or not can be specified here. If this proposed pre-selection is checked, then the system will automatically display the list of all the reference document items like in the micro screen in these screens also, right? Another interesting thing is the allow negative stocks concept. Usually whenever you're issuing or transferring any stock, you can only issue up to the stock showing in the system. You cannot issue more than the stock available in the system. But what if you have a situation where you cannot keep any stock issue pending because of lack of stock? Obviously, you cannot issue stock that you do not have. But let's talk about a situation where physically you have the stock available. Let's say you get a requirement for issuing 250 kgs of the material. In the system, it's only showing 100 kgs. Just then, the vendor delivers an additional stock of 300 kgs. So physically, you have 400 kgs available. But the person doing the goods receipt is carrying out some other activity because of which he may not be able to do the goods entry right now. But because the issue has to be done immediately for that material, you cannot wait for that person to complete the task. So the allow negative stocks option will allow the users to issue the stock even though the system stock is less than what is required to be issued or transferred. So when you click on execute, it will ask you for which valuation area you want the stock to be issued in negative. Select that valuation area, go to the plant, specify the plant in which you want the stock to be issued. So here you can select any default plant. So here in this plant, for which stock types you need to issue the stock in negative can be specified. And within this plant also you can specify in which storage locations the stocks can be issued in negative. So based on this setting, when that activity is carried out for those stock types, system will allow the stock to be issued more than what is showing in the system. For your practice, it will not allow you to issue more than the system stock because this is a practice system. But in the real time, since everything will be activated, you will be able to issue the stock in negative. Similarly, for goods receipt, the specific settings, the first one is set tolerance limits. This tolerance limit is to ensure the price variance between the valuation price and the order price unit. The order price uh, value is within the tolerance limit specified here. And in case it is outside the tolerance limit, should it show a warning message or an error message? For an error message, what should be the percentage of difference tolerance? And for the warning message, what should be the percentage of tolerance limit is specified here. And these values are mandatory and they have to be maintained at the company code level. Since we copied from the standard plant, these values were already copied for our company code. So the standard price and moving average price variances have to be maintained. Based on this, when you carry out the goods receipt, the system will check for the variance, and if it is outside that variance, the tolerance limit, system will give you an error message and will not allow you to receive the stock. Similarly, create purchase order automatically. Now, this is not conversion of the purchase requisition to a purchase order, but in case of any tolerance limit, delivery tolerance, that is the quantity receiving quantity variance is allowed. If a additional stock, that is excess stock, is allowed to be received, for that additional stock, again a purchase order must be created. So this create purchase order automatically